different direction with regards to maybe a more seductive look or something like that. So I think humility is a key factor there. Another thing that I think is on the other side of the equation, there are people who think, ankle length, shapeless dresses are the only way to appear modest. And I think that that is also a little bit misleading, because then we have reduced a woman's beauty to solely her body parts. It's definitely much more than that.
Welcome to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends, the podcast where we explore life, career, relationships, and pop culture through a Christian conservative perspective. Each episode, we dive into deep topics that matter most to us women, from navigating your career with grace and confidence to watering meaningful relationships grounded in faith. We're here to empower you to embrace your femininity and stand firm in your beliefs. We'll also tackle the latest in pop culture, discussing how they align or clash with our values. Let's uncover the truth and encourage each other to live boldly and authentically. So whether you're at home or on your commute, get ready for some fabulous conversations. Grab your teacup, pour yourself some tea. Come on, girlies, we're changing culture.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory, and we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited for this episode. If you know me in real life, I talk about it every 5 seconds. When I got my color analysis done, it has changed my life. It was just such a great experience, and you can definitely see the difference, and we'll talk about that later. And so I'm really excited to have Lizzy Bennett, who is a color analyst and a personal stylist. She's the person who did my color analysis for me, and I message her sometimes when for example, this lipstick color, I messaged her, there was options, and I was like, hey, which one it looks best for bright winter? And that's what I am. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about personal style. We're going to talk about beauty. We're going to talk about all of those things. And then at the end, if you listen all the way in, there's a special treat and surprise for those who listen to the complete end. So without further ado, let's get into it. You guys, welcome Lizzy Bennett to the show. Yay.
Thank you so much.
Lizzy, can you tell us really quick who you are?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mal. I was so excited when you invited me to do this. But yeah, I am a former missionary kid. We just returned back to the States after serving for pretty much half my life overseas. I mean, I grew up in Indiana, so I was a small town girl until we moved to the mission field. Kind of had a lot of different experiences, which I'm very thankful for. And the Lord has just, allowed me to go through those things to teach me different things and different lessons. But I do have a lot of, I guess, creative interests. One of which is writing, and another is this whole idea of color and style. It's something that I've just found very interesting. My mom always loved dressing us up and instilled in us kind of a love for all of those things, beautiful things. And so I guess I'm just really excited about doing that for myself and then helping other people to see the beauty in color and style as well.
Awesome. Well, we have some questions from the audience, and I thought of some questions as well.
Okay.
So let's get into that. What first made you interested in becoming like a color analyst? Like, did you go to school for it? Did you see someone else do it and decide you want to do it? Like, what made you interested?
Okay. Well, I think this was probably 7 or 8 years ago. It wasn't a social media trend yet. It was still kind of hidden in fashion blogs and things like that, but I kind of stumbled across it on the internet and was just really, really interested because I had heard my mom talk about this when I was younger. She hadn't really gotten into the whole idea of color analysis, but she just kind of intuitively knew what colors looked good on her or looked good on us. So when she was shopping for us, she'd be like, let's choose this dress over this one because this one looks beautiful on you and makes you glow. But then when I found out there was a science to it and it was like an actual system, I really got interested. When I first started out, there wasn't a lot of resources for women, with brown and black skin or different skin tones. And so it was a little hard to find out what I was without coming across a really weird information, like everybody with brown skin is this color, or everybody with black hair is this season. And so I had to do a lot of research. I went into like medical journals. I started reading up on skin pigmentation and what makes different colors come out for different skin tones. And so basically kind of had to not develop my own system, but tweak the system to fit, I guess, more skin tones, more variety. And so that's why I didn't formally go to school for it. I feel like I had to really, I was more self-taught, but I also feel more confident because I can now apply that information to really any skin tone, um, and be able to make that work.
And I think it means a lot that you did your own research too, as opposed to just like being told X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
Especially because, and you said there's like a science to it, which I think is really cool. Someone asked, now when you say the science behind it, it's like about how your pigment, like how light reflects. Can you delve a little bit more into that?
Sure. So I guess the basic idea is we've all heard of the color wheel. Growing up, probably with like in art class, we mixed different paints together and talked about, what makes what color. So when the Lord created us, he placed the same types of pigments in every kind of skin tone, but the amount of each color, whether it's red, blue, or yellow, differs for different skin tones. And then of course we have melanin, which creates the brown color as well. So when you put that all together, different combinations create different undertones or even overtones we'll talk about that probably a little bit later. And so we have to, in color analysis, what we're basically doing is echoing whatever the Lord has already given you in your face with the colors that you wear in order to create the most amount of harmony. So if you are, for example, cool toned, if your skin has more cool tones to it, more blue pigment, I guess, then you would wear cooler toned clothing so it doesn't clash with your skin tone. Presents more of a picture of harmony that way. So I guess that's like the very concise version of the science behind it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you never really think of it that way. When you go shopping, like, oh, that looks cute, and you try it on, and then I mean, obviously, we've all been in the dressing room, tried something on that looks really cute, and not even just like the size, but like it against our skin, like the color is just kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
something's off, and I feel like at least I didn't really know like why it just fell off. I'm like, I just don't. And we all say, oh, I just don't look good in X colors, but we don't really know why. Um,
Right.
like personally, I don't really feel like I look good in like pale colors. Like I don't think pale is like right for me. And then I
Mm-hmm.
found out it really isn't right for me. And I think like getting your analysis done really does help. Like also gives you like a sense of ease, not a sense of mind, ease of mind.
Sure.
When
Yeah.
you are like trying to pick things and you're like, okay, what should I look for? Because even for my New Year, well, we're recording this before New Year's. So even with my New Year's dress, when I do like now when I buy things and it's like New Year's or like well, I already have my Christmas or my birthday dress even. I
Sure.
am looking for things that I know will flatter me because of the colors and like all that stuff. So it just honestly getting it done really helps you, I
So,
think, in the long run.
yes, I think there's like more than one way. Of course, it does help to make you look more put together and things. I also think it just saves you money because now you know exactly what to wear or what to buy, instead of just grabbing something because it looks cute on the rack. I know a lot of times I've talked myself out of purchases because I'm like, that's not my color. I'm not going to end up looking or feeling my best in it. So why waste the money on it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And then let's see here. Another question I have. How I don't want you to share too much because I do want people to come to you. I'll link the link to her website. But how does the process kind of go? Because there are some. I mean, how I found you, I was getting really into it. I wanted to create a statement piece wardrobe, which didn't
Okay.
do this year. 2025 is going to be my year. But I
Sure.
wanted to do that. That's what I said. I was like, I'm going to make a statement pieces. So I want to have like really nice pieces like for work and like for church and da da da. And then I was talking about the color analysis. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to invest in a really nice, like for example,
Mhm.
really nice blazer that
Right.
is not like I'm going to look awful in. So I'm like looking it up. And the place near my house was $400. And where I am in my life right now, I just don't have $400.
Right.
That is not something that especially, yeah, I just don't have $400 to invest in this. And on the website, she was like, this is an investment. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, not for me. Like, that's
Right.
a
Yeah.
little crazy. So then I put on my Instagram, does anybody know anyone who is a little bit more affordable, who, can do it? And then I did start thinking about, like, I like how you brought up the different, like, skin tones, like the
Mm-hmm.
pigmentations, and this is something that sometimes people get uncomfortable talking about, but I think it's okay for us to discuss it, especially because
Sure.
it's the truth. Sometimes you go places and you're in certain arenas and people, it's not malicious, they just don't know. And I mean,
Right.
even Hollywood people talk about it from their in like a like when they go and get their hair done, for example. Like sometimes there just
Mhm.
aren't people who can do different types of hair. And it's not once again, it's not malicious, it's just something that happens. So then I
Right.
started thinking about that too. Like I'm like, I can't spend $400 and then the person not really know how to do, you know, black skin.
Yeah.
So, I'm putting it on my Instagram and I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot remember who recommended you. But someone I
Okay.
follow recommended you. I wish I could, maybe if you're listening, like let me know.
Yeah.
Recommended you. So I like went to the website and I was like, okay, this is more affordable. And I like that you're also virtual. And then it did give me a peace of mind that you do have brown skin. So I know that you at least looked more into it.
Sure.
Once again, I'm not saying people who don't are malicious. I'm just saying. So yeah. And I forgot where there was a question at the end of this rant, but I forgot where it came from. What the question was. Can't remember the question, but I guess that's the background of like how I got into this. If anyone's interested in how I got into this, let me look at another question. Oh, that's funny. And these are the things you get with Those Are the Girls. It's super honest and, I don't filter things.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks. I really want the podcast. So everybody listening, I really want you to feel like you're sitting here listening with, like we're having the conversation together.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you the story. And in real life, sometimes I start telling stories and I forget where I'm going at the end as well.
So do
I know. I want to kind of talk a little bit about like beauty and about, I guess, being put together as
I. Okay.
women and as, let's, even as Christians, I had a Carla from Culture of Life on, and she said there isn't a 10 commandment that says we have to look frumpy or something like that. And I was like, oh, I like that a lot. Because I think
Right.
sometimes we think that being Christian, we can just, I don't know, put on, and like I've done this myself, just put on like a frumpy dress, and not even a dress, like a sweatshirts and a sweatpants, not put any
Sure.
effort in. But I do think there is something to be said about putting some effort into wearing some color to, I mean, even like your glass. I love the color of your glasses and like
Oh, thank
throwing on a lipstick, like just
you.
doing, like caring about your hair. I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on?
This is one of my favorite topics. So I'm glad you asked me that. I think for the most part, it really comes down to, I believe, how we view God. If we realize that and if we understand that he is a God of beauty and majesty and glory, which he has revealed to us over and over again in scripture, but also in nature. I mean, we see what he has created in color and details and all of these things. And I believe that when, as image bearers of God, we can reflect that glory when we also pursue beauty and all of these things. So when I think sometimes we tie frumpiness, or for lack of a better word, just more of a stoic lifestyle with holiness. And we kind of equate those two things. But I think there's nothing more holy, especially if you look at how the Israelites, the Lord commanded them to have their temples and all of their things. It was always filled with beautiful things. And so those two things are not at odds with one another. Beauty and holiness, I think, can go together, especially if we do it in a way that, of course, honors the Lord, which is probably where modesty comes into this conversation, and dignity as well. But overall, I think we should think of it as like a privilege as women to display the glory of God, in the way that we dress, in the way that we, present ourselves to the world before we have a conversation with them, or even, maybe even tell them about the Lord. People are observing the way that we appear. And so, of course, modesty is one way that we show that we are different from the world. But I also think just being appearing elegant and well put together is just an instant way for someone to be like, oh, she looks different. I wonder why. And then of course we can say it is because of our faith and of who we worship. So I really like looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And even from like a secular perspective as well, a lot of times people judge us by how we dress. Now, should they do that? Sure. No, that's probably not right. But that's just like a human thing that we do. And we all do it. Whoever's listening, I don't care what you say, you do it too. Like, it's just like a human thing. You see someone, I don't want to say, but you see someone, no, you see someone dressed, I'll use boy, for example. If you see a boy dressed in like, he's sagging his pants, you see his boxers, he's wearing like a completely, like a wife beater or a oversized shirt and he's backwards hat even, like obviously we're going to create an image of him and of what this person thinks and believes. So I agree with you. How we dress does reflect who we are. It can portray that. Now, are there days where we might not be our best 10 out of 10? Sure. But I do think that for the most part, we should be putting forth an effort. And that's also like how I live my life. And also I want to say, like, that doesn't mean you can't wear like sweatshirt and sweatpants. It just means, I don't know, like, I just don't think it should be every day. Now, this is something controversial that I want to ask you. I just thought of this.
Okay.
And anyone who's listening, like, neither one of us are going to judge you whether you do this or not. Lizzy, what do you think about people wearing like sweats or shorts or t-shirts to church?
This is definitely a hot topic. Okay, so all three of those things you just mentioned, athleisure, shorts, and t-shirts, have kind of become like a uniform for society. If you think about it, it's more of an there are androgynous articles of clothing, right? A lot of times a t-shirt that you pick up, even if it's got like a cute print on it or whatever, there's no difference in the shape really between a man's t-shirt and a woman's t-shirt. And so a lot of times I feel like it's just an easy way out, especially when putting outfits together or whatever, because we're craving more of that casual, comfortable lifestyle more than, and I don't want to say people who do dress like that don't put any effort into their appearance. I'm just saying a lot of times it appears that way, where we crave comfort a lot more than we crave, you know, a well put together image. And so a lot of times when we're going to church and dressing in these kinds of outfits, it almost feels like, kind of like an easy way out again. Like you don't really want to put a whole lot of effort into your appearance. And I know the argument is, well, the Lord understands my heart, or God knows, that I exactly. But I do think that if we were to put in effort for literally any other kind of situation, like if you were invited to a party or to meet someone really important, then it's a kind of respect and honor that we not only give to the person that we are seeing, but we show that we actually respect and honor our own bodies. And that's why we choose to present ourselves in that way. So I think it kind of goes both ways. When we're going to worship the Lord, not only do we dress ourselves in a way that honors Him, but it also shows, hey, I am a child of the King. This is how I want to go and present myself when I'm with other believers as well. So I think there's like a fine line between dressing to honor the Lord and then also not doing it to gain attention from other people or to judge others for like not dressing. So with any conversation, I think there's a little bit of nuance there, but I do agree with you. I think we would think along the same lines there.
Yeah. You said that so much more eloquently than I could have ever imagined. I was just going to say you should wear dresses at church, but no, you laid it out perfectly. I want to add, I also think I heard someone else say this in a talk once, and I actually had this conversation with my friend the day before we were recording this because we were talking about Congress people that have blue hair. And I was saying, I think that if you want to dye your hair blue, I mean, go for it, sister. But like, if you're going to be in Congress, that level of prestige, I think you should just have a wig. Like, if you want to dye your hair blue, maybe put on a brown wig when you come into office or whatever. That's just my personal thought. So I applied that same logic also to like church. Like, I think that for church, we should be dressing and presenting ourselves because of the event that we're going to. Yeah, I guess it's an event, the event we're going to. Because I do think like one of the things that I think, and I think my parents kind of instilled this into us, is like church isn't just, it's a place of worship, of course, but it's also sometimes we're presenting ourselves to Jesus. And you can go back and forth about things with the Catholic Church. I know neither one of us are Catholic, but I really respect Catholics because like Catholics always, and part of it is because they do believe Jesus is literally there. So I think that's something that we Protestants can work on, is actually dressing like that and like presenting ourselves. Because when you are, so back to the example I was using about the Congress, when how you dress kind of reflects how you're going to act, as much as we don't think that. But like, let's be honest with ourselves. When we're going out with our friends and we're not going to wear the same clothes we're going to wear to work for the most part, because we're going to be acting differently. At least I think you probably should be acting differently at the bar than you should at work. So like, I just think like how we dress reflects that. Like, it's a subconscious thing. I don't think we intentionally are like, I don't think it's like necessarily intentional, but I think like when you wear a little bit more loungy, like relaxed, like you said, uniform pieces to church, then you will reflect relaxed, loungy, uniform things in your worship. And I think it's just a little bit more important than that, than just like our regular t-shirt and jeans thing. And like, my parents really had like, I remember when I was younger, so I don't think I've ever worn like leggings or jeans to church except for like a Sunday night or a Wednesday night thing. And that wasn't until I like got to be an adult, because even then my mom and dad would make sure I was always wearing a dress. And I remember being younger, like some of my friends would have to wear dresses and like being so annoyed. My mom's like, oh no, we're wearing a dress. And then my grandma's wearing a dress and hats and everything, and like very traditional in that traditional Southern Black in that sense. But they're doing all that, and like looking back now as I'm older, like I see why they would do that. I see why that's important now. So I do think, I personally think that you should, as a woman, you should wear a dress to church. I even know people who are women that veil at church.
Yes, I do
so
too.
And I think that also is another reflection of, you're going, and also in Catholic and Protestant women I know that veil. So like, it's not just a Catholic thing. And I think that also just brings it to another level of like, this is serious, as opposed to, oh, just another lovely day out and about type of thing.
Yeah. And if I might add, there are two things that I thought of really quickly. When we make it about, well, God knows my heart, he does. And that is why you can pray at home in literally anything. When you're having your private fellowship time with the Lord, you can show up in literally whatever you want. And of course, that is between you and the Lord. But there's another dimension at church, because you're adding in the body of Christ. And so, yes, you can come before the Lord in any way that you would like. But when you are meeting with other believers, I think we have that little bit of that responsibility to then, again, dress for the occasion. Church is an occasion. Praying your quiet time with the Lord in the morning is not. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And then the second thing I think that trips people up is, well, does that mean we all have to wear pink frilly dresses? Is that the epitome of femininity? And I strongly disagree. I think there's a lot to do with, again, the colors that look best on you, the types of fabric that look best on you. And so there is not one sort of one size fits all kind of formula to follow in order to appear feminine and put together and beautiful. And I think that's the most interesting part of all this, that where color and style fits in, is that under the banner of modesty and beauty and dignity, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of variety that the Lord has created that we can experiment with and enjoy, and not feel like we all have to dress the same in order to appear beautiful or, dignified or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Let's talk a little bit more on that. Because I think so, for example, if you're listening and you're like, Mallory, you're just so hyper feminine, you're just girly. you don't understand how it is. You're right. I don't. I can admit that. Like, and that's something that I don't know. I'm just girly. Like, I like wearing dresses. I'll wear a dress. I'm going to a Christmas party now. I'll probably wear a dress to that. Yeah, that's just who I am.
Right.
But I definitely know, and you can still show off your femininity. You don't have to wear a dress all the time. I do think you should wear one to church. You don't have to wear it all the time to be feminine. Your femininity can be expressed in other ways.
Right.
Can you kind of like talk a little bit about that? Maybe like expressing godly femininity in other ways?
Absolutely. This has more to do with style, of course, than color. Of course, a lot of times we associate certain colors with girliness, like pink. For example, I love pink. I wear pink, but there are some people who would not touch a pink shirt or dress, uh, which, that's fair. And you can wear black and you can wear, whatever other color you'd like and still make that a feminine thing. And so I think that's one way that people can again get a little bit thrown off. But I think a lot of it comes down to your body type and your style essence, which are kind of related, but also two different things. So think about it. If somebody like you puts on, I don't know, just something that's not girly at all. So imagine an outfit which you would just not touch at all. But there are
Baggy.
some women, baggy pants. All right, we'll go from women who, because of the structure of their body, could wear baggy pants and still look very feminine doing that. Now, because with the structure of your body, basically we're talking about your bones, not your how much you weigh or, anything like that. It really has to do with your skeletal structure. And the Lord has created so much variety in that. If you go past the labels of tall, petite, curvy, skinny, I don't know, mid-sized, all of these labels that we have created ourselves, you go past that and talk about how are your bones shaped? What are your proportions? Do you have rounded shoulders like I do? Do you have sharper shoulders? Do you have broad shoulders? A lot of times that affects how different clothes fit on your body. So somebody with sharper shoulders would probably feel ridiculous in puff sleeves or frilly, ruffly clothing. But somebody with sloped or rounded shoulders like me, it would look perfectly harmonious. And so that's one way that somebody who, has broader shoulders and you try to put them in a really height restricted blazer, they're going to feel like something's off. They're not going to feel feminine and pretty. So dressing for your lines or for your structure of your body helps to create that idea of, okay, this looks right on my body. I can embrace my femininity. The second thing is style essence. So we all have different facial features. Obviously, that's what makes us unique. But some people if you tried out an outfit before and felt like, I don't look like myself in this, right? I look like I'm wearing a costume or dressed in somebody else's clothes. A lot of times it's because of style essence, which is just a fancy way of saying what aesthetic fits you the most. Now, if you've scrolled TikTok or gone online at any point, you see a bunch of different aesthetics like coastal grandmother or something like that, which is very confusing sometimes. But if there's a system that's just a lot easier to do where you just echo the shapes in your face. For example, if you have more rounded features, you go for more rounded elements in your clothing, which usually translates to, again, bows and ruffles and more girly things. If you have more sharp features, what we would call traditionally more masculine features, then you don't look feminine in very feminine things. And that's okay. You would just have to match what's happening in your face, and that will still present you as a very feminine person, just not in the way that we would traditionally think about it. So that's just like an overview. I don't want to get too deep. If I get started, I'll keep going.
And this is a good segue because you do a course. Do you talk about this in your course?
I do, yes.
Okay, yeah. Can you talk about your course really quick? Like, promote it?
Yes, absolutely. So it's called Dressing with Dignity, and it's a 3-part live kind of webinar where we talk about your body type, your style essence, and really putting all of those things together to create a personal style that is uniquely yours. And so that way you don't feel like, again, you're dressing in somebody else's clothes. The course just came out last week, but it is live. So you can sign up for it anytime and really pick dates that work for you. And there's 3 separate modules. So you can do one module, wait a couple of weeks, do another one. And by the end of the course, the objective is that you know how to dress your own body. And you don't have to be kind of following style trends or whatever's in at the moment. You can know exactly what works for you and why it works for you. And I call it like become your own personal stylist, basically.
Oh, I love that. And I mean, piggybacking off what you said earlier too, it also makes me think of like different times. There's been like one distinct time I remember I
Mhm.
put something on and I was like, my gosh, this is not how I thought I'd look. My
Right.
friend was throwing a Great Gatsby party
Hmm.
and I was like, normally I'd be like, oh, I'll be a flapper. But I was like, you know what? I've seen like people like Zendaya or like other people wear like the more masculine look and they look great. Chef's kiss. So I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to try that. My goodness. I put on the suspenders and I was like, this is terrifying. And now listening to you, I definitely have a rounder face. I have like more sloped shoulders. I'm like,
Yeah.
now this makes a lot of sense. I'll never forget that because I was like, you see other people doing it. And I love when a girl can like wear, a little bit more masculine stuff and they look great. And they make
Mm.
it look feminine. Like Zendaya is another one. I have another friend who is very feminine, but she likes more of that European look. She wears trousers all the time and
Mhm.
belts and like button downs. And she looks, oh my gosh, she looks great. Me,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, I could never. Like, I don't wear like trousers. I haven't owned a belt in years. Like,
Right.
that's just not for me. And it
Right.
makes sense with this, what you're saying.
Right. And that was just like a very simplistic version of how deep we go. Now, there's different kinds of rounded features, of course. So there's not one thing. We don't polarize people into this is masculine dressing and feminine dressing, but I think there's just a lot of variety. And sometimes it gets confusing because everything we see on Pinterest or Instagram or TikTok are women that are very different from us, either by color or size or shape or whatever it is. Maybe even their lifestyles are different from us. I wouldn't find a reason to wear a blazer in my day to day life, but you might have events that you need to go to. So when we shop according to our lifestyle and the way that our body is shaped and proportioned, we feel more comfortable and not like we're just constantly trying to imitate other people.
Oh, that's good. Okay, everybody, I will link the course for you guys to sign up. This is good. I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna do it too in the new. Well, by the time you hear it, it'll be the new year. So that's on my list. Like, because like I said, last year I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a statement piece wardrobe. Didn't do that, but I want to do that this year just because, like, I'm getting older. Like, I do want to have like good classic statement pieces and not have as many. I just like looking at my closet now. Like, my closet door is open. Looking at my closet door now, I just have a lot of variety random pieces. I like the pieces that I have, but it's just so like it would just be nice to have like a portion of my closet that's like uniform. I think just it'll be
Right.
simpler, I guess.
Yeah.
Um that is really great. So I have 2 more questions for you
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap up. I in my head I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be 30 minutes or less. We're already at the 30-minute mark. It's not gonna
Oh,
be 30 minutes or less. That's
we're
fine.
having fun.
Yeah, yeah. So my last-ish question is, can we talk a little about modesty? I know modesty is like another hot topic, and modesty is so personal, and I think that we all subconsciously kind of like if someone says you're immodest, like we take it so to heart or something like that,
Mm.
and like I
Yeah.
don't know. Also, have you been at this time, Evie? You know Evie magazine?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, have you seen the dress? Okay, let's talk about that in a second. Let's talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, so like modesty is it's such a personal thing, and I want to talk about that. And if you're listening and you're like, well, Mallory, sometimes I'm not perfect. Like I never said I was perfect. But one thing that I think like I can admit, like, you know what, that probably was not the most modest dress. I can admit that. And some not to brag, but some people can't, I can admit that. But like think that like it's just important for us because it is what God has called us to do. So I think, having a discussion about it once again is very personal. If, we say something you don't like, just leave a comment, let us know.
Mhm.
Probably won't change our minds, but like, leave a comment. But yeah, like, let's talk modesty. Like, what are some, I guess, like, what are things that you, for your personal self, what are some things that you think about when it comes to modesty?
Yes, it's definitely a really, again, it's a conversation that I think people can take to extremes really quick. It's either because that people will say, well, it's not all about you, your appearance, it's all about your heart. And then other people will say, well, if your heart is right, it kind of goes both ways. The way that I have always thought of it, or at least have come to think of it, is a lot of times modesty is really linked to humility. When you put on something and you just can, we girls know how it is. We put something on, we stand in the front mirror, and we're immediately feeling ourselves in a way that we know is like drawing attention to you. You know that when you step out in that, you're going to draw attention to yourself. And I think a lot of times that is kind of an indicator of, can I be humble in this dress? Can I be, is this creating pride? Or is this fostering humility? Because, of course, as believers, we are called to be humble. We are called to point to the Lord and not back to ourselves. And I don't think that goes against what we were talking about earlier. When we do dress our best, we are still drawing attention to what we are wearing, but not in a way that immediately takes things in a different direction. With regards to maybe a more seductive look or something like that. So I think humility is a key factor there. Another thing that I think is, on the other side of the equation, there are people who think, ankle length, shapeless dresses are the only way to appear modest. And I think that that is also a little bit misleading, because then we have reduced a woman's beauty to solely her body parts. It's definitely much more than that. So I think across cultures, across religions, there's always different things. This is something that I'll just like really quickly touch on. But when we talk about modesty, there are other religions that also believe in modesty. And I think you're thinking of one right now. I'm not going to mention it, but when they think of modesty, they immediately equate it to covering a woman up head to toe, right? And immediately we lose the beauty and the dignity aspect of a woman's beauty. And I think that Christianity is probably the only religion, and I will say is the only religion that allows a woman to be modest, beautiful, and dignified at the same time. Because the Lord created us that way. He didn't give us, bodies to cover up. He gave us bodies to steward well. And I think stewardship is another thing there. If we really treasure what the Lord has given us, we will steward it in a way that shows that we are thankful for it and are grateful for it. And that one of those things is when the Lord says, you know, don't be a stumbling block for other people and don't, be holy, basically. That's one way that we can do that. So yeah, that's for me personally, that means I wear pants, I wear skirts, I wear dresses. I wear all of these things. And I don't think that you should only wear maxi skirts. But at the same time, I think when I set guidelines for myself, it's going to look different on my body than it might look on someone else's body. Somebody could wear, really, really tight clothing and their body fills it out in a way that is different from another body, if you get my drift. Um, so again, I think it comes down to knowing your body and how certain fabrics or certain cuts look on you, and then using that knowledge to dress yourself modestly. So I don't know. That was a little bit scattered, but hopefully that answered your question.
No, that answered the question. That was really good. And I think, and I think that's the best way to answer that question, instead of just being like XYZ is modest, or like listing out this dress is, or this outfit is, and this outfit is. I think that was the perfect way to answer the question. So before the last and final question that we asked all, let's talk 2 seconds about the dress, the
Mhm.
Evie dress.
Right.
Personally, I think, like, my personal thoughts, I don't necessarily think it's like the world's worst dress. I feel like people are definitely blowing it out of proportion. I definitely think that smaller breasts would look, more modest in it.
Right.
I think that I think probably everybody can say that,
Yeah.
if you're, but I really don't think it's that bad of a dress, especially the not white ones. I will say the white, just because it's so like I also don't like white dresses in general. I do
Mm-hmm.
think maybe that maybe leans more to nightgown type area, but like the blue one and the yellow one, I think, and the pink one, I think they're perfectly fine. Once again, I do think you probably have bigger breasts. Maybe this dress just isn't for you, and that's okay. Not everything is meant for you. What are your thoughts on it?
That's a good point. I do think that's again, the type of dresses really does depend on your body structure. I think a lot of times I know they've like responded in the comments like the person isn't wearing a bra and that's why it looks that way. Um I think personally I wouldn't feel comfortable again because of my body type. I don't think that would fit me well or in a way that appears modest. But I think a lot of the pushback has been because they chose to use models that immediately you're like, okay, that's where my eye is drawn, Um, and people just can't see themselves wearing it in that way. Now, is there probably a way to bring the neckline up higher, maybe tie the strings a little bit tighter, maybe? But I also wouldn't probably spend that much money on something just to make more alterations and modifications to it. So yeah, I think again, it really does come down to, is it going to work for you personally? If not, then let's not blame the dress. Let's just say, like you said, not every dress is for everybody. And yeah, I think also it's a lot to do with how they're posing and everything. It might make it look worse than it is. Unless I would try the dress on myself, I couldn't tell you for sure though.
Yeah, fair, fair. Okay, I was just curious since we're,
Yeah,
it's what's going on the internet right now.
I know. Definitely like something that was all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been like 4 days, and I feel like people on Twitter at least are still talking about it. So,
Really?
but yeah, by the time you guys hear it, hopefully it'll be over because I don't think it's worth, all this time we're spending on it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for coming on. I want to ask you
absolutely.
one last question, and this is a question that we ask every guest. And it is, if every single girl in the entire world was listening to you right now, what would you tell them?
How?
No pressure, but every
Right.
single girl.
Every single girl. I would be remiss to not talk about the Lord because as much as we talk about beauty, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the author of beauty is Jesus Christ. And if we are trying to pursue beauty, if we're trying to become beautiful people, it's really impossible to do without knowing the author of beauty. And I think the way that we do that, of course, is from the inside out, as many people have already said already. But if you know Jesus Christ, if you know who he is and allow him to transform you from the inside out, that is a kind of beauty that cannot be imitated. It's a kind of beauty that can't be faked. And then the icing on the cake then is just how you choose to present yourself on the outside. And so the one thing that I would tell everyone is if you don't know Jesus, the Psalm 34:5 says they looked to him and were radiant. That's my verse behind my brand, Radiant Woman Co. And that's the secret, really. It's not a secret, but knowing the Lord is going to create a radiance in you, a joy in you that cannot be replicated by a 10-step skincare system. And so find out who the Lord is. He's if you seek him, he is easy to find. And once you know Jesus for yourself, I think that you'll really find out what true beauty is. So that's my little word of advice for everybody.
So, no, that's really good. Thank you so much again. Also, so last thing as well, tell everyone how if they want to connect with you, if they want to register for the courses, if they want to get a color analysis, tell them how to connect.
Okay. Well, you can go to my website, radiantwomanco.com, or you can visit my Instagram. I've got Elizabeth J. Bennett, which is my personal page, and then there's the Radiant Woman Co. page as well. But either of those places or any of those places, you can go and either book a color analysis with me or register for my style seminar. I look forward to working with anybody who's interested. So yeah, those are ways that you can connect with me.
Yay! Thank you so much again. This is my third time saying thank you, but this was an amazing episode. I really, really enjoyed it. You
Me
guys,
too.
let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think you should always wear a dress to church? What are your thoughts on the dress? What are your thoughts on modesty? Have you even thought about doing a color analysis? Let us know in the comments. And if you would like to win a color analysis, I'll be paying for one person for Lizzy to do the color analysis. I'll be paying for them to do that. Just comment on the graphic of this post your favorite part of the episode. Let us know. Yeah, I think that's it. Make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, however, wherever you're listening. Yeah, have a good day, night, evening, however, wherever you're listening. Bye, everybody.